Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asana Cayetano.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
It is Monday. It's almost the end of the month. It's the last week in July. And my, how time flies quickly. We're almost in August.
Yes, very much so. You know, if it were a normal year, we'd be saying you're halfway through summer. But, you know, the kids have been out of school for a real long time, and I guess they have less schoolwork to be able to do. But that's also, you know, I think something that a lot of parents have been asking questions about, what's going to happen with school next month.
Well, believe it or not, we're already in back to school mode in terms of preparations, you know, tuition expenses, books, uniform, and that sort of stuff, right? Even though classes won't resume until September for the beginning of the new school year, most parents are already, you know, getting stuff together ahead of that. Again, we're in the COVID pandemic, and things are rather fluid, but we're still making preparations because, as far as we know, everything remains on schedule for September.
That's right, and we do hope so. I mean, we keep on monitoring the COVID-19 numbers. We know that starting today, the new curfew comes into effect, and it seems that the reaction to the 9 p.m. curfew had somewhat of an impact, because the release we got on Friday was that, in fact, the new curfew is going to be 10 p.m.
So it's 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Monday through Sunday. So what we used to have as a Thursday, Friday, Saturday extra hour has now been officially withdrawn. And so we're going to see what impact, if any, it has on reducing the number of infections that are presently on record. That and
the 6 p.m. curfew is in place for minors. So no child can be out unaccompanied or without their parent or guardian after 6 p.m. So they must be along with you if they're outside of their yards. These are things that, of course, come into effect tonight. And we should let you know that, of course, you can get some of these questions in a special program that will be airing tonight at 7:30. There's a live discussion on COVID-19. There are a panel of medical experts, COVID survivors, and legal experts to be able to talk about the latest statutory instrument, what we know about COVID so far, and our continued fight to end the pandemic.
Promises to be interesting, to have a diverse panel of people being able to have this discussion. I mean, it affects all of us, either physically, financially, socially. The COVID-19 pandemic is really something. And
it's interesting, you know, I know a lot of people make fun of the curfew, and of course the question they say, you know, well, is it that you only, you can only catch COVID after hours? But, you know, for me, I guess it's a common sense thing, but it's worthwhile explaining, you know, when you look at the fact that what takes place in the later hours is mostly socializing. We have a culture of getting together and having drinks and socializing. And the minute you start having alcohol, your inhibitions are lowered, and you start to forget to pull up your mask, you forget to wash your hands, you forget to keep that distance. And so cutting down on activities like that can cut down on the spread.
Personally, I maintain that the spread of the virus remains active all day, all night, if that were the case. And so I've always argued that, you know, the virus spreads because of people who are, in a sense, irresponsible. And perhaps the hours at night may not necessarily affect how the virus spreads, because you could be out and about during regular daylight hours, but if you're not employing the proper protocols and what have you, then you are either making yourself susceptible to contracting the virus, or if you have it, you are putting yourself in a position where you're spreading it. Right? And that's, to me, that's either day or night.
Well, and I think we all have collectively, when it was new and we were forced to take these precautions, or were advised to take these precautions because, no one really knew enough about the virus, we all jumped up and started to do what we were supposed to do. People were very stringent about all these protocols, but we got relaxed. We got used to living with COVID, and you find yourself more and more perhaps not washing your hands or sanitizing as much as you used to, not taking distancing as seriously, or not wearing your mask as religiously as you were a year ago. So, the COVID numbers are very concerning. And when you look at the cycle of how long it takes for things to kind of taper down, when we had that outbreak earlier this year, things didn't really calm down till a few months after.
Yeah.
So if this is the trajectory that we are now, there has to be the point where we start to decline, and it's going to be some time before we start seeing those lower, more manageable numbers.
My thing here is, for those of us who are fully vaccinated, we still need to exercise the same precautions, because that too is a part of us letting down our guard. We figure, well, you know what, I'm fully vaccinated, so I don't have to be as precautious or as careful as I was when the pandemic just began. But that's kind of like a false hope. You could still get COVID-19. It may not be as bad as if you were not vaccinated, but the point is, it's easier to err on the side of safety and precaution than it is to be completely relaxed.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'll tell you this much, even the thought of, with being fully vaccinated, I may be prevented from getting severe COVID and ending up in a hospital, but I don't look forward to isolation either. Yeah. So that's enough for me to be motivated to keep on with the precautions, because we've heard time and time again from people who have gotten COVID that the mental toll that it takes to isolate yourself for so long is not easy. And the natural concern that you have, I remember one of the COVID survivors saying, you can't sleep because you're fearful something's going to happen in your sleep and that you may not wake up. Yeah. And it may be a rational or irrational fear, but it is something that mentally takes a toll.
Yeah. Interesting conversation.
But we are still in COVID times. A great reminder once again that you need to keep on doing all that we're asked to do. Wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear your mask. And remember to tune in tonight at 7:30 right here on Channel 5. It'll also be streaming on our Facebook page and the Ministry of Health and Wellness Facebook page. And it will also be on YouTube as well. You can send in your questions. This is a discussion that will be an opportunity for the experts that we do have on the panel to be able to respond to your questions directly. Whatever it is that you need to know or understand about COVID-19, the vaccination, and the pandemic that we're living in, you'll be able to get some of those questions answered tonight. So please do tune in and use the hashtag #GetTheFacts. But we got to get moving into our show. There's a lot to discuss. We also have our Eye on the News coming up in just a bit. But we're going to start off with some motivation, and that means it's time for our Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. A deep feeling of gratitude can emerge as we open to the experience of being helped. Most of us pride ourselves on our self-sufficiency. We like to be responsible for taking care of ourselves and pulling our own weight in the world. This is why it can be so challenging when we find ourselves in a situation in which we have to rely on someone else. This can happen as the result of an illness or an injury, or even in the case of a positive change, such as the arrival of a newborn. At times like these, it is essential that we let go of our feeling that we should be able to do it all by ourselves and accept the help of others. The first step is accepting the situation fully as it is. Too often, we make things worse, either by trying to do more than we should or by lapsing into feelings of uselessness. In both cases, we run the risk of actually prolonging our dependency. The ego resists what it is. So when we move into acceptance, we move into the deeper realm of the soul. In needing others and allowing them to help us, we experience the full realization that we are not on our own in the world.
I've always accepted the fact from a little boy to a young man into adulthood. I've always accepted the fact that no man is an island. And so I begin from there. I've never shied away from asking for help. That's like, it's almost like a given, a rule of thumb, because you won't be able to do everything on your own or by yourself. So while I'm driven by a sense of independence, there's also an acceptance that, you know what, I will need someone at some point. And so looking at where you are in terms of how useful you are to someone else or how useful someone else can be towards you, and looking at the idea that there are certain things where you really wouldn't want to ask for help. You want to show and prove that you're able to do certain things on your own. But drawing from the experience or the resourcefulness of others goes a long way. Like, I might have the most brilliant idea of doing something, or I might find myself in a situation right now where I don't know how to resolve that issue or how to deal with it. It is easier for me to accept it and say, you know what, this is beyond me at this point. Let me get someone else to come in, and maybe they can share some insight, or maybe they have the answer, the wherewithal to solve the issue. And I think once you're able to accept that about yourself or the situation, then it becomes easier.
Yeah, no, you know, and we say it so casually, no man is an island. But
almost sounds cliche, right?
It is, but we, you know, how often do we practice it? And it really is an important place that you have to reach where you can be able to recognize that the time has come for you to ask for help. Even if the time has passed, you still ask for help. And you know, there are many different views on this. I know for men especially, it can be challenging, but because you feel that you have to portray
There's a certain machismo,
strength.
right?
Yeah,
That
alpha
men,
male type of culture.
Precisely.
Yeah, and that makes it even harder for men. And you know, if we go deeper into statistics, that's, you know, why men don't access healthcare, or why men tend to complete suicide more than others. They don't access help when they should.
Because the truth is, Marlene, if I could interject quickly, I think as men, we feel as though asking for help is a sign of weakness, right? And so it's difficult to reconcile the idea that, you know, you can't do everything on your own or by yourself. You don't know everything. You don't have enough arms or legs to accomplish everything you want to do. So you're forced to, at some point, seek help.
Yeah. And that's why it's important when we say we have eye-openers like these, that we can be able to remind people that it's completely natural. It's how we are best meant to function in this world when we have that level of dependency on each other. So that's our eye-opener for this morning. We're going to get moving now into our weather update. It has been steamy, and Angelia Guy is going to tell us how long it'll continue or if it'll even get hotter. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good, you?
Not too bad. We're commenting on how hot it is. What's going to be the forecast for today?
Okay, we'll continue to be sunny and hot today, and partly cloudy tonight, and I expect only isolated showers or the possibility of isolated thunderstorms developing.
All right. Do we have any winds that will help to cool us down during the course of the day?
Winds will continue light for most of the day, and then maybe tonight we'll have a slight increase in the wind speed.
All right. And or temperatures. How hot is it going to be?
Okay, high temperatures today will reach about 91 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 96 inland, and about 84 in the hills.
And for tonight?
The low temperatures tonight will also continue on the warm side, ranging from about 80 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 72 inland, and 66 in the hills.
And from the forecast here, I'm seeing we should soak up the sun because it's going to change, right?
Yes, probably starting late tomorrow. Tropical waves should start moving over our area and then bring some moisture, so we expect an increase in showers and thunderstorms from about late tomorrow through maybe early Thursday.
Okay. All right. And our tropical weather outlook?
Okay, there's a low pressure system just east of Jacksonville, Florida. It has a low chance of any tropical cyclone formation. It is soon reaching land, so it doesn't look like there's much potential there.
All right. Well, Angelia, thank you so much for that update.
You're welcome.
You have a great day.
Thank you, too.
All right.
Some more sunshine we can enjoy until it changes.
Yeah, that's right. You know, it's not the heat that bothers me, it's when it's so still.
Yeah.
You really feel that humidity.
Yeah.
But there is a tropical wave coming in tomorrow, so you do want to plan accordingly. If you do have outdoor activities that you have to get done, then today and tomorrow is probably your best bet. And shifting gears now from weather into the big news coming out of last week and what we have to look forward to in the week ahead. So let's get going with Eye on the News.
So I wanted to take on the singular issue of police reform this morning as we discuss matters relevant to the Eye on the News segment. Last week, there was a lot of emphasis being placed on developments or issues that involved the police department. You would recall that on Monday of last week, the Supreme Court handed down a decision in favor of Brighton Codd and Greg Nunes. Both young men brought a case against the Belize Police Department with respect to the profiling of persons who are stopped and searched across this country. So that was the first thing that kind of brought home this idea that perhaps we should revisit or perhaps look critically at the idea of reforming the department. We're also looking at the Laddie Gillett situation as well. And of course, the two instances where there was an uproar from the Belizean public regarding the issue on Queen Charlotte Street and the other issue involving a group of young men who were allegedly eluding the police officers, and a pursuit was set, and well, we saw the videos what happened on Thursday night. So the idea of this discussion is for us to see where the Ministry of Home Affairs can look critically at how to strengthen the department, but also be able to allow for the officers to be either properly trained in terms of how they deal with people, their rules of engagement, if that were the expression to use here, in terms of them interfacing with the public. Because last week alone, if you were to look at the responses and the reactions of those stories that we ran, beginning from the one with the decision, ending with the funeral for Laddie Gillett on Friday, if you were to look at all of those reactions from the public, it says quite a lot, Marlene.
Yeah, you know, we had the commissioner on last week, and he spoke of a new training curriculum for new recruits, and having entities like the Human Rights Commission going out and doing some training with the officers across the country. I think the question we have to ask ourselves as citizens, one, is that enough? Is it effective? And what other strategies need to be employed to curb the level of police brutality that we have been seeing? You know, the death of Laddie Gillett, I believe the hope is that it should be a turning point for police and civilians interaction. It should be where the department itself takes an honest assessment of their cultural practices and be able to shape it in another direction. The explanation so far of the officer who fired the shot was that he was not someone who got in trouble. There was nothing on his record. So for all intents and purposes, this was not a mischievous officer where this type of action was expected. So for me, that really shows that it goes beyond just a bad cop and bad cop behavior, which you'll find everywhere in the world. It shows that there are rules of engagement or ways of thinking of how you respond that seem to be ingrained, and that is going to take a long time to be able to challenge and to change.
I think, and I totally agree with you in terms of perhaps the background or the profile of the officer involved. Not that that removes or absolves him of what has happened.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
I think there is a long way to go in terms of providing the proper training, to provide the proper resources for these officers to be able to access the knowledge that they need. Because policing is a difficult job.
Of course.
By any stretch of the imagination, it requires a lot. Not only from you, but of the people that you're sworn to protect and serve. So it's a mutual kind of a relationship. But the onus for the greater part is on the officer in terms of being able to deliver on his or her respective duties or their responsibilities. And when you see officers, and we say the department by and large, falls short of what its mandate is, which is to protect and serve, it raises serious questions from the public in terms of their feeling of safety, in terms of their feeling of being protected by the officers who took that oath, right? And in terms of solving matters that involve people who may have either run afoul of the law and were seeking justice, it starts there. So the idea of police reform, to an extent, is a sweeping thing, but if it is narrowed down to some of the things that the department can change in the immediate short term, it goes a long way in terms of building and regaining public confidence.
And I think, you know, it's going beyond that. And you're right. Let's start off with this point. The point is that the work is hard.
Yeah.
You know, what officers, and I enter this topic considering the fact that, you know, there are videos floating around reporting on armed robberies taking place all over the country. We had the situation last week where the person who was robbed defended himself and shot one of the robbers. So there are real situations of danger that are taking place, and it's danger to people and danger to property, and the police is who we call upon to be able to defend us and protect us. So we still have that level of reliance, but at the same time, we have simultaneously the conversation taking place about police reform. So I think it underscores even more so why this is urgent, because we do have a situation with crime that needs to be quelled, but we also want to have the level of trust in our department where we know that when it is not a situation that is dangerous or a situation under threat, that they're acting accordingly and treating people with the dignity that they should. But looking at it even more, I think we have not heard, at least I have not heard, any specific strategy that comes out as a result of this. And I know people will claim that that would be reactive, but it's clear. It's clear based on the recent ruling. It's clear based on the videos that we've seen that there is a need to implement some intervention type action while you keep on working towards reforming the department itself. And I know I didn't miss it. I haven't heard anything along those lines as yet. Even things like transparency with the investigation. Who's investigating the Ladi Jalit shooting? Will there be an independent investigation done as well? When do we find out what really happened on that beach in Placencia? How do we know for sure that we can, that there are actions being taken to prevent this type of response? Yeah. And on the same on that same vein, I think we as citizens have to keep pressuring for the change that we want. I have heard every conversation I've had subsequent to the shooting of Ladi Jalit, everyone has been talking about it with concern and talking about reform. But let's look back on that protest on Friday evening in Belize City. People don't show up. We're good with hashtags and likes and comments and shares, but when the time comes to show up, we don't.
And that's part of the problem. Well, while we're talking reform, we must also bear in mind the fact that you do have people who share strong opinions on what has taken place. But it's not only a matter of, you know, writing a paragraph and posting it on social media. When it comes to actually taking action, taking the kind of measures that show how we think and where we stand as a society, it requires you to be out there too, right? And so the idea of the hashtag only goes so far. If it's meaningful action that is being taken, then it requires your presence, it requires your voice as well. And I'm glad that you brought up the issue of the demonstration, if I want to call it that, or the peaceful protest or what have you on Friday. Because while, yes, there are a lot of people who have commented on it, the show in person was anemic. You know, it left a lot to be desired other than the ones who have a lot to say online, right? But like I said, it goes well beyond that. It has to do with the department being able to look at itself and see where it stands in terms of delivering on its mandate to the people, protect and serve.
And it's not so much a beating up on the entire department. I keep on saying, I know good cops. I know people who are in this line of work because they really do want to serve the community. I wish they would rally together and have a voice, even on issues like this. I wish they would come out and say, we don't stand with that. We don't practice that. And I don't know what the internal guidelines are of the department to be able to speak out like that. But, you know, they always talk about, you know, you attended Catholic school. They talk about the sin of omission, where you sit back and say nothing. And sometimes I feel that those who stand in opposition of what has been taking place when it comes to police brutality and this aggression towards society, those who don't practice it and are in the force, that they should say something too.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is an interesting conversation. We could carry on for quite some time with this. There's so much that can be touched on in terms of the way the department operates and the way we respond to officers in the line of duty. But I just wanted to have that conversation this morning because I know it's something that is very pertinent, and there are a lot of people who are in their own way clamoring for some kind of change within the department. So that was the focus of our Eye on the News this morning. There are several other stories that we will be following up through the course of the day. I know that there was a shooting incident over the weekend in Belize City where 2 persons died. There was also an incident in Belmopan as well that we're going to be looking at. There's also a decision that the Supreme Court will be handing down this morning in respect of an attorney and a story that we had been following several years ago with a matter of an extradition request being made. So all of that are matters that we're going to be looking at carefully today, and of course you can catch our live news at 6 o'clock, and of course the content will also be on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So that's it for the Eye on the News this morning.
And now it's time for us to get moving into our show for today. And we're starting off with an extended conversation. One of the things that's been brewing and actually will be a part of the news cycle this week is the ongoing conversations between the Christian Workers Union and the Port of Belize Limited. There have been quite a few developments. This morning, our conversation is going to be with the CEO of the Port of Belize Limited to find out how they plan to be able to move forward with the recent decision on the movement of sugar, and also in being able to resolve the long-standing issues with the Christian Workers Union.
And that being a 2-part conversation, our final segment will be a discussion with our friends from the Belize Tourism Board. They will be discussing with us the business recovery and enhancement matching grants that are being offered by the BTB. So that will be our final discussion of the morning.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a break before we get our conversation started. But before we do, we got a birthday shout out, and we are saying happy birthday to
Lisa Flores. Happy birthday, Lisa. There she is.
Lisa, we hope you have a great day today, and that comes from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. We'll take that break now. When we come back, we'll be talking to the CEO of Port of Belize Limited. So stay tuned.
It's a fact that with Smart, you get truly unlimited everything. Only with Smart, you get unlimited data anytime, while with the other guy, it's only double data on weekends. With unlimited data every day with Smart, there's no need to wait. So, it's a fact that our unlimited plans beat the competition. Stop being measured and told when to use your data and get unlimited talk, text, and data. Experience the true unlimited plans with Smart. That's a fact. Make the switch and live smart.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
Introducing Edam A cheese, the A+ Dutch cheese to hit the Belizean market. As the name says, it is of A-class quality, the best Dutch cheese in Belize. Edam A cheese is creamier, less salty, and simply more delicious. Don't be left out. Get your A cheese at a supermarket near you. A cheese exclusively distributed by Unitex Company Limited. Call us at 610-3626 or 610-8910. Follow us on Facebook at Unitex Belize.
How does COVID-19 affect the body?
How concerned should I be about COVID variants?
How effective is the COVID-19 vaccine?
What are the side effects of the vaccine?
How will this pandemic come to an end?
How do I keep my family and myself safe?
We all have many questions about COVID. Here's a chance to get your answers. On Monday, July 26, a team of medical experts and COVID survivors will answer these questions and more in a show where you get the facts, dispel the myths. The live discussion on COVID-19 starts at 7:30 p.m. on Channel 5 and streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Post your questions using hashtag #GetTheFacts.
And welcome back. Our first conversation of the morning, as Marlene alluded to prior to the commercial break, is a discussion with the Chief Executive Officer of the Port of Belize Limited. We have been joined on set by CEO Andy Lane for PBL. Good morning, Mr. Lane.
Good morning.
Let's look first of all at the overall picture involving the Port of Belize Limited and the effect or the impact of the pandemic situation on import and export at the trade, at the facility?
Yeah, the port is not necessarily materially different to many other businesses in the country. So, you know, with the decrease in tourists, with the lockdowns and the slowdowns generally in the economy, then in 2020 we lost 1/5 of our container volumes, right? At the same time, our sugar exports declined by 50%, and then suddenly the cruise ships stopped in totality, right? So that was a 90, I think statistically that was a 97 or a 94% loss that we had in 2020. 2021, you know, we've seen a little bit of recovery, but my volume and therefore my revenue is still 13% below 2019. We have one cruise ship a week instead of 2 or 3 per day, and my sugar is still very low. It's still 50% of 2019. So we've had a pretty huge hit to our revenue stream, and that's caused a major problem to the bottom line, and we need to manage that the best we possibly can.
How do you go about perhaps systematically addressing each one of these issues? I know that some things are beyond the control of the port itself. For instance, the return of cruise ship to its optimal is beyond the control of PBL. But in terms of the other areas, how do you put together some kind of a plan or strategy to be able to ensure that you're meeting your targets?
Yes, you're quite right. I mean, our revenue stream is not something that we necessarily have direct control over. And another thing to remember about our revenue stream is that we work with a tariff which dates back to the early 1980s. So there has been no increase in unit revenues in nearly 40 years since the port began. So without the unit revenues increasing, and we can't just push up the unit revenues either, because that simply just makes the price for consumers for imported goods more expensive. It makes Belizean exports less attractive in the world. So the only thing we can really focus on is our cost, and our cost is king for us right now, and we need to make every effort that we can. So in 2020, we unfortunately had to say goodbye to 34 staff. Our original idea was more in line with what the government thinks of today in terms of reducing staff wages by 10%. That was wholeheartedly rejected by the union, and the only alternative we had was to say goodbye to some very good people, and that hurt a lot. It hurt the people, it hurt the company, it hurt the remaining employees. But it was a situation that we were essentially forced into. You know, we have to make sure that the business is sustainable.
It's a situation that many businesses find themselves in, having to decide how to be sustainable while maintaining staff, and many did go the route of wage cuts. But I want to step back just for a moment, if you'd allow me, to talk a bit about the point at which you entered as CEO of the Port of Belize Limited. It's only been a few months, and my question is, having known the landscape of the challenges, and not just COVID-19, but the ongoing disputes that you've had to face with the union, what were some of your strategic ideas stepping in as to how you felt it could be resolved?
Yes, so we need to go back to my predecessor, Mr. Pablo Salinas, who's actually also a personal friend of 20 years. He probably came in at the most difficult time, and he did a lot of very good rough tuning. He made a lot of process amendments. He restructured the organization, and he set us on the right track. When I came in, it was more about refining what Pablo had been doing in his short time. He was CEO for only 18 months, right? So what I'm looking at is structuring performance management. We were in dire need of having a mission and a vision and some organizational values. We have a lot of potential in our leadership team, but the skills need to be further refined, and we need to lead people better. We need to create a much nicer working environment for our employees, and these are all of the things that we've been working on since I've been here, as well as digitalization and process improvements. This year so far, our productivity on container ships is 14% above last year. So we're doing absolutely fantastically. And this is, I can only say thanks to my staff, to my stevedores for the great efforts and achievements that they've made in getting to that result.
Yeah. The efficiency at the port is absolutely crucial for the country, not just for the port and the workers or the direct customers. It's how we're going to keep business going and at a rapid pace as well. The digitization that took place previously and now what you're talking about with better workflow management is one step. But there still is really your elephant in the middle of the room is being able to work out relations with the unions on now the CBA for staff. Let's dive into that issue.
Sure, yes. So the believe it or not, the existing CBA for our staff was created in 2002 when we lived in a very different world. That was even before the global financial crisis, right? And essentially that took us through to 2006. And the thing with the CBA is that it never expires until it's replaced with a new CBA. And in the past, there's been various attempts to renew and modernize that CBA. And that's something which now I've picked up again. And it's something which we will have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week. We will have deep discussions with our union in the presence of the Labour Commissioner and the Labour Minister, and we will try to make some progress on this because the existing one it's somewhat outdated. Despite the fact that it has expired, we've continued to honour that.
It's rolled over.
Yeah, we've continued to honour that as per the 2002 agreements, and we will continue to honour that as well. But it does need to get modernised and get refreshed. So hopefully we can make some good progress this week on that.
How do you maneuver in an environment where, for as long as we have been covering the news, there has been tension between the management and the ownership of the Port of Belize Limited and the stevedores? There have been several people who have been at the helm over the past few years, and this issue remains a perennial one. How do you, as a fairly new CEO, come in and be able to maneuver those rough tides?
Yeah, first of all, I think there's some misperceptions relating to the stevedores. We have around about 160 stevedores, and 99% of these guys, they are hard workers, they work in a harsh environment, they do a dangerous job, and they do it extremely well, right? The vast majority of our stevedores, they want to come to work, they want to earn their money, they want to go home and be with their families. Unfortunately, in any group of people, there is maybe just a handful that don't necessarily see it that way. And unfortunately, the union has maybe not best managed the expectations and the behavior of that very small element, right? And that's where the tensions come from. So next week we will be talking with the union about the stevedore issues, and again I hope that we can make some progress there, and I hope that we can get an agreement in place and where we can stop all of this tension and this friction, because it's not good for my employees, the stevedores. They're left with a great deal of uncertainty for the future. I can understand how that impacts them and their families, and we need to get to a better place where, now that we know, it was only since last week or the week before that we knew for sure that an element of our business was moving away. Now we know what we need to deal with going forward. We have our eyes open, and now we can start to talk about, how do we best proceed.
Well, I want to get into the sugar issue. That's a critical issue here. But before we do, the last year, it was a historic moment where the CBA was able to be signed with the Christian Workers Union and the port when it came to the stevedores. The current CBA on the table is regarding staff. Now, the accusation that was being made by the Christian Workers Union is that the PBL was non-responsive or slow to respond to their requests for meetings. which is part of the reason why they initiated their go slow. How do you respond to that?
I have a very different take on that. So from the day that I took over as the CEO, which was the 27th of March, and until the 21st of April, we were engaged in discussions with the union. Mm-hmm. The union left that table. From the 21st of April to the 28th of May, I have sent at least 5 requests for us to continue the discussions on the secondary substitutes agreement that was outstanding after the main CBA was implemented last August for the stevedores. All of those requests were ignored. But on the 28th, so that was 5 weeks. So on the 28th of May, the union decided rather than talking to PBL, they would instead talk to the Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. So they sent a letter, they sent an MOU, and they sent a load of other documents to the Prime Minister, turning the attention now around to the sugar. Now, unfortunately, that has sat with the government. I'm not going to say with the Prime Minister, but that has sat with the government for 7 or 8 weeks. And the response that came back, I don't think it was befitting of the issue which is actually on the table. And I can fully understand the Christian Workers Union feeling let down by the government here. They have unfortunately had to hear, they had to hear from me on March the 30th that there was a big risk that the sugar was leaving. They've had to hear from me again last week that the decision has been made that the MOU will not be respected, which I find disappointing, for want of a better word. And I understand their issues and I understand their frustration. However, it's not us that has not been willing to talk. It is essentially the union that has not been willing to talk. And as early as July the 8th, when these matters were still outstanding, there was an orchestrated, deliberate slowdown on the sugar. And this has resulted in quite significant issues for our stevedores, for our employees. That for me was unnecessary, that was premature, it was irresponsible, and it shouldn't have happened.
And there's a direct impact and cost.
Yes, exactly. And you know, if we're to be a sustainable business, we need to deliver a service that that adds value to our customers. And preventing the loading of sugar at a sensible speed, and this is happening at a time when the government is deliberating, you know, shall we honour the MOU, shall we not honour the MOU? We haven't really given the government a great deal of confidence in our ability to be the port of choice for sugar exports, right? So the timing was so inappropriate. It was a rash decision. I mean, it seems sometimes like the union's horizon is no later than around about lunchtime, right? And we have to look at our business from a long-term sustainable platform for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
This issue plays out publicly. And there are several different things on the table right now. And I want to give you I want to ask you if the ongoing conversation for the CBA with the staff is one issue. The question about redundancy for sugar is a part of that. And then there's also the conversation that takes place on the MOU, which is a decision that's made by government. Do you feel that the decision around the sugar and the consequences of this decision have kind of overshadowed and become intermingled with the CBA discussion?
This is very much what the union likes to do, is it likes to intermingle and mix different issues. You know, it's a little catchphrase maybe. The union is very fast to get things started. It's not so effective at actually getting things closed. And what we have said from the get-go, from before I came here, is that we take one issue at a time, we discuss it to its conclusion, we get it done, we get it finished, we get it implemented, we don't half-bake it, and then we move on to the next issue, and then we move on to the next issue. And that's the only way that we can get things sorted out. Entering into last week with the knowledge that, with the 100% knowledge that the sugar will not be in PBL next year, but it will be in Big Creek, now we know for the first time exactly what it is we need to discuss. And I think we had a very good meeting with the union last week. where we have agreed timelines and a roadmap for how we will discuss all of these various different issues. And PBL wants these issues resolved. We don't want to have uncertainty in our business. It's very, very difficult for us to strategize and drive the business in the right way when we have all of these things outstanding. So I sincerely hope in the week or two ahead that we can get these matters resolved and in an amicable way.
What are some of the sticking points when it comes to the collective bargaining agreement with the staff that you're finding challenges in getting a resolution to?
You know, the staff CBA it's a fascinating subject because, you know, I'm a highly engaging leader and I have some highly engaging managers, and we speak to our staff on a hourly basis, right? I don't get a sense that my staff are particularly disappointed. Yeah, they have some frustrations, that always exists. Would they like to have this thing resolved? Yes, they would. But I don't get a burning platform sense from my staff. What I sense from my staff is that they're probably more concerned about their long-term future and the retention of their jobs than they are about a few little benefits in the CBA. It's knowing what the future will bring and knowing that they can provide for their families. That, for me, based on my interactions with my staff, that's what I'm hearing as the most important thing. But that's not what's being communicated to us by their representatives. So how well is the union representing the true voice of my staff, of my employees?
Well, you have no choice but to work with the union representative.
No, absolutely, and we recognize that the Christian Workers Union is the sole party for bargaining backwards and forwards. No problems with that at all. But I would very much prefer a starting point where we had issues on the table which are the real issues that the staff are facing, and not some things which have been concocted in a dark room somewhere in Belize City, right? And that, for me at least, that seems to be the case. So if you talk about the sticking points, then, and you know, it's always the same in these discussions, so they would like to have pay rises. They would like to have greater severance packages. They would like to have retrospective bonuses. Everything is about money, 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 money. But my staff are not craving for money. They're craving for security. They're craving for progress. They're craving for a better working environment. And these are all of the things that I've been spending my time on because I know that that's more important to my staff than a number of cents in a payslip.
Let's go back a bit. We're looking at sugar as one of the mainstays. It's perhaps one of the significant contracts that you guys have as the port. With the operations for shipment now moving to Big Creek, how does this impact, or how do you plan to fill the void left in the wake of the movement of this particular operation that you guys are undertaking at the port?
The sugar is going to be a big loss, and I wish it was staying, but I also appreciate and I accept that BSI needs to provide a logistics service which is the most efficient for itself and which ensures that the farmers are able to keep as much of the profits as they need. I fully get that, I fully understand that. I have no ill feelings towards BSI. BSI still remain a large customer of mine, and it remains our intention to satisfy that customer's requirements. Now, I'm a shipping guy, I'm a shipping consultant before being a CEO. I know the price of door-to-door logistics, you know, from origin in Tower Mill to discharge in Europe or in the US. And the calculations that I've made are very similar to the numbers that BSI has, in that, you know, we're talking very, very, very marginal gains for BSI and the farmers by moving to Big Creek. Yes, the ships turn faster because they have an automated loading system. They can load 4,000 tons a day, and we can load, I won't put a number on it, but something significantly less. And that makes a major difference. You know, ships these days are incredibly expensive things to charter, right? They don't have the stevedoring expenses that we have, but that's offset by the cost of additional land transportation, which is much more expensive than bringing the sugar by barge down into Port of Belize. Now, the number that the Prime Minister gave me, and a number which resonates reasonably well with me, and I don't think that BSI would argue against it, is that, you know, we could be talking about something like $2 Belizean per metric ton is the cost advantage of Big Creek. But what we maybe haven't considered is the 4,000 or 5,000 tons of additional CO2 that's going to be emitted by trucking rather than barging. We haven't factored in the damage to the roads. We haven't factored in highway safety. We haven't factored in noise pollution and pollution to rural communities as these 35-ton trucks tear through their villages at 25 or 35 miles per hour, right? All of those things have not really been considered. So if you were to put numbers on those things, then that $2 Belizean is probably eaten up. So for the overall, if you talk about it from a country perspective, it's not necessarily the best. Then if you look at it in a different way, our stevedores are contracted to work 12-hour shifts on the sugar. And in a 12-hour shift, each gang, a gang has 10 men, each gang is able to handle 3 barges. How do we know this? Because it's happened in the past. If you pay them double time, they will do 2 barges. If you pay them single time, they will only capable of doing 1 barge. So this whole arrangement that's developed
So the productivity changes.
This has been brewing for 16 years, right? 2005, Port of Belize handled its first sugar. And even in the early days, there were go-slows, there was trickery being played. The game is very, very simple. If you want more than 1 barge performed by 1 gang in a 12-hour shift, and the barge brings 110 tons, then you need to pay extra. Previously, at least during my time here, BSI has agreed to do double time payments for 2 barges per gang per ship. So if we're working 3 cranes, that means we can handle 6 barges, 660 tons in a 12-hour shift, or 1,320 tons in a 24-hour period. And when we're able to do that, if we can do that consistently without interruption, then our product is lower cost than the product that Big Creek can offer. The problem is the consistency and the erraticness of what happens. So when the wind changes direction and suddenly the slowdown happens, then of course we tilt the scales. And this is, I think this is what BSI really can't continue to accept is the behavioral element.
And that's what I was going to ask. In a 12-hour shift, if I am the consumer, I expect a certain amount of work to be done within that 12 hours. What you're saying is that fluctuates based on how much the manual labor is able to complete and based on their own individual incentives.
The manual labor is not the problem. Again, 99% of these guys, we put them on a ship, they leave their family for 12 hours. What they want is to maximize their earnings. If they can go home at the end of that shift safely, with double time in their pocket, and each man has worked 2 barges, everybody's happy. They're happy, we're happy, the customer's happy. Unfortunately, other forces bully and intimidate my good stevedores into working slower, because they seem to feel that this is in their long-term interests. And now quite clearly with the sugar leaving, everybody has lost.
I want to continue. I mean, there's a lot more to unpack there. So we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive into this topic a bit more and understand what happens from here, whether you will re-engage with government, whether the situation is salvageable, but we'll talk about those after this very short commercial break. So please stay tuned.
Thank you.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Trimming the hedges and overgrown trees, packing food supplies, ensuring that you have medical supplies and important documents are all part of your hurricane preparations. But what about your home insurance? An insurance policy with RF&G Insurance gives you the confidence that your home and possessions are protected when a natural disaster strikes. Include RF&G in your hurricane plans and join the thousands of Belizeans who have learned why it pays to get it right. RF&G Insurance is a Roku company.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
It's time to put your TVs on lockdown. COVID won't stop us this time. After a year of waiting, Summerfest is back, pandemic style. If you're under the age of 18 and you think you have the talent, we are looking for you. Submit videos to us on Facebook, Instagram, and email. Or join us here at Channel 5 on Coney Drive to audition from July 26th to 30th from 10 a.m. to midday. Be a part of Summerfest 2021 and show Belize your talent.
And welcome back. We're continuing our conversation this morning with PBL CEO Andy Lane as we discuss all things that are happening at the Port of Belize Limited. Our conversation prior to the commercial break was the issue of the departure of sugar from PBL to Big Creek, and we were discussing what the impact of that will be on PBL and the opportunities that perhaps will arise in terms of you seeking new business and what have you to fill that void. Let's go back a bit. You've mentioned that there's ongoing discussions with the Christian Workers Union in terms of trying to resolve this issue. What happens in the interim? Because the operations perhaps are sort of delayed or slowed down in terms of being able to deliver on certain targets. What happens between now and the time perhaps where this matter is resolved?
We have to maintain continuity of the business for the business which remains, right? I mean, we've seen, we have a very recent, a very live example of what happens to our business and what happens to our employees if we have irrational and erratic behavior, right? So if we keep on doing the same thing and expect a different result, then I don't think we're necessarily doing our cognitive ability too much justice, right? So we have to continue. I mean, as I mentioned before, the performance on the container operation is the best that it's ever been. we're doing fantastically well. Yeah, the volumes are a little bit down, but you know, we're turning ships as quickly as we can. We have one chink in our armor, and that's the agreement that we have in terms of working hours, which defies all logic, but it is what it is. It's in the CBA, and we have to work with that. But I think generally, I mean, the feedback that I get from our container customers is that they're generally reasonably happy with the service that we produce. Could it be better? Yes, of course it could. Will we make it better? Yes, we will. That's our aim, to continually raise the bar in terms of the product that we offer to our customers. I'm just launching our mission, vision, values, and our vision is that we are the port of choice for Belizean shippers, right? That's our vision. And we can't demand that our customers like us. The only way that we can get our customers to like us is to provide a level of service that delights them, that meets or exceeds their expectations. And so long as we can do that, we will have a viable business. We will retain the customers, we will be able to retain the employees, and everything will be generally quite good. So that's very positive. The sugar is not the mainstay of my business. Let's just put that out there. The sugar is maybe 10 or 15% of the total business of the Port of Belize. We also have some wheat and we have some fertilizer. It's relatively modest in its volumes, but it's really the containers where the Port of Belize this is our main act.
But while it's only 10 to 15% of the overall business for Port of Belize, for the stevedores, it's one of their main income earners.
Well, here's the thing, and you know, we speak with facts from the Port of Belize, and that's not necessarily what you always hear in the news. So as recently as last week, we have heard that the stevedores are going to lose 50% of their income. Not true. Not true. If you take our regular stevedores, they are earning 75% of their annual earnings come from containers, and the balance comes from the sugar operations. So yes.
Regular versus, what's the other?
Well, we have 3 levels of stevedores. So we have our regular fixed ganged stevedores, and then we have some substitutes if those are not available, and then we have some secondary substitutes if the substitutes are not available. And you know, as time has gone...
And none of them are losing as much as 50%?
Some of the secondary substitutes, they have very little, if not no opportunities to work on sugar. To work on containers. So for those guys, yes, there's a lot of their earnings are being lost because it's only in the sugar season when they get to earn any business, right? But for the regular stevedores and for the substitute stevedores, it's a significantly less number. And the secondary substitutes, you know, they're not covered by the existing CBA. These guys are also called trailers. I mean, they're still employees. They're still paid by PBL, but they're not having any contracts. They are essentially casual workers.
They're like temps. They fill in when the others aren't available.
Precisely, and I think the majority of them, they're working in many different areas as well. So they're not only, I mean, the regular stevedores are probably working the majority of their time with the PBL, but the secondary substitutes, they're doing all sorts of other work as well.
You spoke of the mission for the port and looking at the service that you want to provide. When we're talking about the sugar, you're talking about, again, several entities. You have Port of Belize, the stevedores, and what they are obligated to be able to provide to PBL based on the CBA. There is the relationship that you have with your customer, the sugar industry, and then they also have a relationship with the cane farmers as well. And throw into that mix the Big Creek port, which had a memorandum of understanding with the government of Belize saying that they would not essentially take business away from the Belize City port. So all of these factors are at play, and now what has taken place as of last week is that the government, and I know the Prime Minister has gone on record to say it, that the agreement isn't legally binding. And in fact, the cane farmers are the ones who essentially pay the ultimate price when there is a delay at the Port of Belize for whatever reason is taking place there.
The farmers take 65% of the total logistics costs. So whenever there's an increase in logistics costs, whenever there's a delay, 65% of that goes to the farmers. And for the recent shipment which was aborted in Port of Belize due to the extreme slowdown. I mean, here I'm talking an extreme slowdown where in some 12-hour periods we loaded 50 tons, right? Not 600 tons. So
it was almost a 10-day delay, you said?
Yes, yes. So to put a cost on that, just simply in terms of the cost of the ship, not to mention any other associated costs, that means that the farmers now pick up a bill of $20 Belizean per ton of sugar. And that's $20 Belizean on top of an end-to-end supply chain cost of about 180, 190. So it's a significant hit for the farmers.
And you can understand that when the government looks at the agreement and whether or not they should allow for the sugar to be moved to the Big Creek port, when these are the numbers that the cane farmers, the men who go out and do a lot of all the manual labor, why they would be inclined to go for a more efficient service.
I think it's difficult to blame the cane farmers. It's difficult to blame BSI, ASR for the decisions that they've taken, right? And again, as I mentioned before, this is the consequence of irrational, illogical behavior, right? And we've seen this the world over. I mean, you take the port of Portland in Oregon in the US. In 2015, the slowdown and the performance of the business, essentially the port was closed. It was shut down, and it was shut down for 4 years, right? Just because of ridiculous behavior, and everybody loses. The stevedores, the longshoremen, they lose, the community loses, everybody loses when that happens. And these are the situations we need to avoid.
Yeah. I think you said in your press conference that it's equally as important to you as Port of Belize, as the stevedores, to maintain the business relationship with ASR BSI.
Yes. They're still a big exporter, right? I mean, the direction of BSI is that they want to export more refined sugar than raw sugar. And the refined sugar is exported in containers, and they are happy at the moment with our container service. And as we see more and more sugar being refined and value added in Belize, the numbers, I think they're going to move from 1/3 refined to 2/3 refined. That will be a big boost for our export container business, and that's very much appreciated. And we are 110% committed to providing a good service for those container exports.
Now the question is, though, where do you go from here?
Well, we need to take these discussions and we need to get these agreements into place. And it needs to be done, you know, if there are reasonable requests, a reasonable request is very different to a completely unreasonable, ridiculous demand, right? So if somebody wants to knock on my door and says, hey, Mr. Lane, you know, can you give me $1 million and I'm going to give you nothing back in return, that's unrealistic. If we can have sensible discussions about how can we make things better for our employees whilst ensuring that the business remains competitive, those are the discussions that we want to have and we can have. So we will get into those discussions starting on Wednesday with the staff CBA, and we will continue discussions next week in relation to the stevedores and the sugar redundancy. Just to get onto that, you know, the word redundancy.
I was going to say, so PBL has to pay redundancy to stevedores who will no longer be collecting that portion based on sugar.
Well, the thing is, redundancy means that you leave employment and you get compensated or severed from that employment.
Because you're no longer needed.
We're not severing the employment of anybody. So there is no redundancy.
You can imagine that this is not going to be a position that is accepted by the stevedores.
I've spoken with some of the stevedores. It was a little bit of an emotional and heated discussion, but I asked several of the stevedores, you know, if you talk about redundancy, how many of you would like to sever your employment with the Port of Belize and then take your redundancy payment? Because if people come forward and ask for voluntary redundancy, then, you know, maybe we would consider that. We have a lot of stevedores. We have a lot of reserve and stevedores waiting, or we have a lot of people waiting to become stevedores. So we can have those discussions, but the stevedores do not want to be made redundant. They want to continue working with the Port of Belize.
I was just about to say, because in all our years of dealing with stevedores and the discussion surrounding their line of work, regardless of what the outcome is, nobody is willing to let go to say, well, I will voluntarily walk away from this line of work. So it's almost as if though those who are waiting in line to become stevedores won't be doing so anytime soon, because the ones that are in place are there firmly put.
That's very correct. And yeah,
because it's a high earning job?
It depends on how you look at it. I mean, there was a figure put out last week by the union that suggested stevedores earn $35,000 Belizean dollars per year. I think that's an inflated number. I think it's closer to 30, but if you look at the Social Security Board statistics, then somebody who earns $30,000 a year is in the top quartile, in the top 25% of wage earners out of the 110,000 registered Belizean workers with the Social Security Board. If you look at it, so that's one way to look at it. If you look at it in terms of hourly pay, and if you look at it only in terms of hourly pay on containers, and these numbers might shock you, the average stevedore, the average, right? This is not talking about individual stevedores, individual gangs. The average stevedore works 5 hours per week on average. This means that the average stevedore has twice the hourly pay of a minister before the minister takes a 10% pay cut, and assuming that a minister only works 39.5 hours a week, which we know is not true. So, depending on how you look at it, right, there's you know, I only speak with numbers and facts. Of course, numbers and facts alone, you know, it's also about interpreting those numbers and facts, right? And I don't want to dramatize or emotionalize anything here, but...
And I just want to counter with the justification that is typically given as to why it's a high-earning job, because of the risks associated with it as well.
It's a strenuous job. It's a hard job. It's dexterous. And these men have to be very strong, and they have to be very fit. In terms of dangerous, it's only dangerous if the company or the foreman or the stevedores do not follow our very, very clear safety standards. Basically, these guys are manhandling 30-ton containers to and from the ship, right? And there are ways that you can do that to mitigate the risk. We have had, year to date, we have had 3 accidents where stevedores have been injured in the container operation. And each and every one of those accidents was preventable and avoidable if the safety protocols are being followed. So on the 28th of April this year, on World Safety Day, we had a large campaign. We reminded everybody of you know, how do we work safely and how do we protect ourselves and our colleagues from danger. When I came here in the back end of March, there were stevedores with no helmets, with no safety vests. That's not the case today. They're all wearing helmets, they're all wearing safety vests. We're kitting them out with shoes, we're getting them raincoats. You know, we will provide all of the equipment that they need to keep them safe, to keep them dry, to keep them healthy at work. And so long as they follow all of the existing protocols, we mitigate the risk of what is, without protocols, I agree, a very dangerous occupation.
Now, I'm Amanda, the bigger issue is how do you, there is a CBA in place that outlines how the PBL works with the stevedores. And you've spoken of the 12-hour shifts and basically how productivity changes, how much they output at the end of the day in their performance is based on what they're collecting. How do you mitigate this? Because from a consumer standpoint, it's either going to cost me more in time or money to get the job done, especially in a world where people are moving towards automation.
The 12-hour shift is specifically relevant to the sugar. Basically, what happens with our container ships, and this is something that I particularly dislike because it's illogical and it creates, it puts us in an uncompetitive position from the get-go. But the union, when the CBA was being negotiated, pushed and refused against all common logic arguments to allow a different setup on the container operation. So the setup is a ship comes in and it's worked by one gang. Now previously we would work a maximum of 12 hours because that was compliant with the labor laws of Belize, and then one gang would complete, another gang would come in and continue the operation. Those laws were changed so that it's now legal to work 15 hours, and you know, this is dexterous manual, this is physically and mentally draining work, and 12 hours is already a long period. What's then happened is that we have one ship and it's one gang. So if that ship does not complete in 15 hours, that gang goes home and takes its mandatory 9 hours of rest, and the ship sits there for 9 hours doing nothing until that gang returns back to work. That's grossly inefficient. This is something which does not happen in any other port anywhere on this planet. It was something which, despite all of the arguments last year for this not to happen, the union just kept on dismissing it. And they talked about, you know, it's about the stevedore gangs don't want to leave work for other gangs to complete. It's almost like the gangs compete with each other. If you look at year to date, and if you look at how many containers have been handled per gang, you would then expect it to be fairly even. That's not the case. Some gangs have handled 15 or 20% more than the average, and some have handled 12 or 13% less than the average. And there's a huge disparity between the number of containers and the number of hours each gang is working and the income that the stevedores are getting.
What creates that disparity?
It's just simply the, you know, this thing about, you know, we have to work one gang, one ship so that everybody gets equal income. It is not delivering what it was designed to deliver. It is not fit for purpose. It is not helping the stevedores. It's not ticking a single box, and it's absolutely not helping our customers with the efficiency of their shipping logistics.
And this existing move of the sugar to Big Creek Port is kind of the end result of what this type of inefficiency for so long.
Well, the sugar is due to 16 years of constant slowdowns, right? That's why the sugar is going. The containers is a very, I mean, the two operations are materially very, very different. But on the containers now, you know, if the containers was always the mainstay of my business and the sugar was almost like a secondary gig, now that the sugar is no longer there, it becomes all that much more important that our container product gets better and better and better. So that's what we need to work towards.
Now, the question, you know, I think in the response by the Prime Minister to the media in looking at the decision by government, one was looking at the impact on cane farmers, which have been feeling the impact for so long and never really discussed. So that's one. Second is looking at the industry itself. Delays for the industry comes at a cost as well, and in a time where we're trying to earn more from more exports. But then the other issue is looking at convenience and being able to put in the investment in modernizing the services as well. How do you respond to that?
Yes, so I mean, our our operation as it stands today is 40 years old. So when that was set up, you know, with an 800-meter long trestle and a pierhead in the middle of the sea, and a 70-meter berth, that was very appropriate in 1980. It's less relevant in 2021, and we recognize this. The owners of our organization are prepared to invest. The statement from the Prime Minister on Thursday of last week talked about a reluctance to invest. That is false. That is not true. There has been a proposal for modernization and expansion of the Port of Belize on the table for over 1 year, and it has not yet been approved. On Friday, we put yet another environmental assessment impact up for public notification for review. And there's a 2-week process running now where the public can have a look at how we intend to develop this port in a sustainable way. But the money is available for modernizing the ports, and the minute that we have approval, the modernization will commence. And we very much look forward to that. So it's not that we're not prepared to invest. That's completely false.
Now, you understand that publicly, as this has played out year after year after year, it is seen that the institution is essentially taking advantage of the small group of workers. And we have heard the cries, we've seen the protests, we've seen where it reaches the point of, escalates to the point of violence. How do you explain, or how do you respond to the fact that people feel that for some reason there is a move to be able to take advantage of the stevedores?
Again, I think that this is emotionally fueled, and it's being done in a very irresponsible way. We have a group of men who want to work. They work very hard, and they are paid, let's call it, a not unreasonable income for the work that they do, right? The compensation that they get is not too bad. It's not fantastic, but it's not too bad. These poor guys, my employees, seem to be used as pawns in a different story, and a story which I don't really understand. A story which doesn't really seem to have an objective. They're manipulated and used as pawns by the union for some other agenda, and what that other agenda is, I really don't know. And you just can look at history to see that there's only one modus of operandi with this union, is that they concoct issues, they emotionalize and dramatize those issues, they incite the violence that you talk about. They come with these concocted issues, making ridiculous demands, and the consequence of us not bowing to their demands is that they'll shut the port down and try and burn it. And this repeats and repeats and repeats itself time and time again. I'm not sure how that can even be considered to be legal activity. I mean, inciting violence, that's surely a criminal offense. And that, for me, is what's happening here.
This has happened in the past, where we've seen a level of violence escalating out of failed discussions. The most recent one that I could recall was an incident, I believe, in last year, where the gang suppression unit was essentially unleashed on members of the union who are employed as stevedores. How do you attempt as best as possible to prevent a recurrence such as this? Because it would seem as though whenever there is a breakdown in discussion, then it becomes an issue where, okay, like you said, we'll burn tires, we'll try to shut the place down and seize operations. How do you prevent that from happening in terms of negotiating with people who are rather difficult and firm in their position?
you know, we will enter into these negotiations in good faith. We're looking for solutions. We're not looking for problems, right? The union wants to create the problems, and we want to solve the problems that have been created. And some of those problems might be real, and some of them might be artificial, and there's a whole, as you mentioned before, the complexity. Yes, there's a lot of complexity involved here. I don't want to get into the details of how this might be resolved. You know, our stance historically has been that we deal with our employees, we deal with the unions, and we do that in a room, and we do it between ourselves. I'm only here today to try and correct some of the falsehoods that are circulating in the media, because the union prefers to have the media pantomime running, and essentially, you know, they realize that what they're asking for is unrealistic, and they will then try to get those unrealistic demands through inciting violence and threats, but they're also very effective at trying to get support from the community. So I'm here today to talk about facts, to try and put a different narrative on the table in terms of how are things really. We have some ideas as to how we can solve all of these issues. This is the staff CBA, this is the stevedores and the sugar, and this is also about the secondary substitutes and promotional plans, and there's a lot of things on the go here. We have solutions for each and every one of those, and we believe that those are pragmatic solutions. Those are solutions that ensure that our company remains sustainable. That means we don't need in the future to go and sever more employees from their employment, right? And we believe that it's right for the employees, and we believe that this will add value to our employees. So at the end of all of this, we believe that we can be in a position where we can move sustainably forward in a peaceful environment, continuing to improve our service, continuing to add value to the country as an essential service.
And while you are a private business, my question is, what's your communication or with the private sector at this point? What is missing in this conversation as well is how important efficiency at the port is for businesses across this country.
I mean, right now, one thing that I instigated here is something called a focus vessel approach. So with one specific customer, every single week we have a pre-operational meeting, we have a post-operational post-mortem. We look at their processes, we look at our processes, and how do they interface and how do they interact. We learn from data and from very, very detailed data and statistics, you know, what's actually happening in our operation. This takes a huge amount of effort, and the particular customer who's engaged with us on this is doing a fantastic job. I mean, they're also looking to change their processes, and we're looking to find mutual ways of getting greater efficiency. The reason we do it only on one service is because it's very, very time consuming to do. The thing is, what we learn on one particular service, it can be replicated to all of the other services that we have and to all of the other customers. So I would like to think that we have a good, honest, productive business relationship with our direct customers. We're maybe a little detached from our indirect customers, but that's something we can also work on in the future. If you think about those specifically being the importers, the exporters, the truckers who don't have contracts and commercial agreements with us. But what we have managed to achieve this year is we've reduced the average time that an external truck spends in our facility from 60 minutes to 40 minutes. And that's just, again, through raising awareness, through measuring performance, and through creating this frenzy within our organization that the customer matters and that performance matters, and it's delivering dividends, and I'm very, very pleased and happy with the results that this is producing, and I'm very, very pleased with the contribution that my excellent staff are making to ensuring that our customers have a much better experience.
And last thing, Do you believe that the situation with ASR, BSI, and the maintaining of business that you do have with them is salvageable?
Oh, it's more than salvageable. I mean, we can ask BSI, but in my mind, at least, they are relatively satisfied with the business that we continue to do with them, i.e. the container exports of refined sugar. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned a few times before, we will continue to look to improve that service. But I mean, I personally, I feel I have a good relationship with BSI. I mean, these are sensible people, these are intelligent people, and they make their requirements known to us, and we try to deliver against their requirements, and for me at least, that's a very harmonious and productive business relationship that we have with BSI ASR.
All right. And today, you said you continued the conversation on the CBA for the staff this week.
Starting on Wednesday, yes. Yes.
All right, Andy. Well, thank you for providing your perspective as the CEO of the Port of Belize on the ongoing issues that we have been seeing and hearing about.
And thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will be talking to BTB about a new grant program. So please.
The Social Security Board, in collaboration with the Labor Department, takes this opportunity to remind insured persons of the requirements for compensation when on sick leave. Any employee who has worked with an employer for at least 2 months is entitled to 16 working days of sick leave with full pay every year. This is how it works. Upon approval of a sickness or injury benefit claim by SSB, 80% of the employee's weekly insurable earnings is paid as a Social Security benefit, and the difference in the employee's salary is paid by the employer. This is to ensure that the employee does not suffer any loss of wages when ill. After 16 days, compensation for sick leave is paid as a Social Security benefit only. Some conditions apply. This message is brought to you by the Social Security Board and the Labor Department. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your Smart broadband with Smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
No make no sense at all. No kind of sense. That Belize video when I have that sign up there in the China for.
That not in your China at all, that in Spanish.
You understand what it said then?
Yeah. It said wear your face mask properly, cover your nose and your mouth.
Will help prevent the spread of COVID to others. Together we could make Belize safe.
Wear your mask properly over your mouth and nose to protect yourself and others. Together we can keep Belize COVID-19 safe.
How does COVID-19 affect the body?
How concerned should I be about COVID variants?
How effective is the COVID-19 vaccine?
What are the side effects of the vaccine?
How will this pandemic come to an end?
How do I keep my family and myself safe?
We all have many questions about COVID. Here's a chance to get your answers. On Monday, July 26, a team of medical experts and COVID survivors will answer these questions and more in a show where you get the facts, dispel the myths. The live discussion on COVID-19 starts at 7:30 p.m. on Channel 5 and streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Post your questions using hashtag #GetTheFacts. It's time to put your TVs on lockdown. COVID won't stop us this time. After a year of waiting, Summerfest is back, pandemic style. If you're under the age of 18 and you think you have the talent, we are looking for you. Submit videos to us on Facebook, Instagram, and email. Or join us here at Channel 5 on Coney Drive to audition from July 26th to 30th from 10 a.m. to midday. Be a part of Summerfest 2021 and show Belize your talent.
Wow. Oh my God, she drunk. No hurry, I got this. Goodness. Oh my gosh, it's the artist.
Being the hardest. The artist. But you had way more than 2 drinks tonight, love, which is a legal limit to drive. What about you? Can you drive?
Well, I was drinking soft drink all night, so I can drive her home. Thanks, Bree. Of course, Tricia. You know I got you. You're my girl.
That's what I like to see. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, because you can't replay in a real life. Stig says so. Can't replay in a real life.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. Our final conversation this morning is with our friends from the Belize Tourism Board. We have with us the Director of Industry Development, Josue Carballo. Good morning, Josue.
Good morning, everyone.
We also have Grants Administrator Denmar VR. Good morning, Denmar.
Good morning.
And so our discussion this morning has to do with the BTB's Business Recovery and Enhancement Matching Grants Program. First of all, we need to understand what this is about and who the audience is that you're targeting in terms of this particular initiative. Yes. Let's start with you, Josue.
Well, good morning, everyone, once more. Thank you for receiving us. You know that we're in a tourism means business. Tourism definitely means the recovery stage that could assist a lot in our economy getting back on its feet.
Yeah.
And as such, through the BTB, we're working on a number of initiatives, out of which one of them is the matching business grants. It is our way of reaching out, particularly starting with the micro and small enterprises, the ones that are more vulnerable to this economic shock at the moment, and going forward. No? This is one, hopefully, of other grant programs or similar financing methods that we can use to assist the industry. Yes. But we're starting off, like we said, with the micro and small. No? We found out that there are numerous needs, immediate needs, Among some, well, we have worked a lot on gold certification through the BTB. As of July, we had approximately over 1,150 applicants for gold standard. Out of them, probably close to 1,000 of them have already been certified. And the remainder, well, we're trying to find ways to bridge that gap to get them certified. Among the initiatives would be the business grant. We also have a health and safety kit that we'll be issuing out. We can also discuss a bit about that in a few. But when it comes to the matching grants, we are focusing on primarily on the small, micro and small enterprises, talking about entities that comprise over 25-30% of the tourism sector, which are the like the smaller tour guides, the ones that have the small artisanal shops, the personnel that basically has a small little restaurant with employees up to no more than 5.
Okay.
So we are looking at catering for particularly the emerging destinations within the country. And in reality, when you look at it, it's almost spread out nationwide. Belize has potential for tourism in almost every district. So we are focusing on a lot of the emerging destinations, on assisting gold standard certified applicants at the moment. And as we go along, we're definitely pushing to get to assist and create little booster programs between $1,000 to $5,000 in grant, but it is a matching grant. And
where would they get the other portion from?
Maybe I will allow Denmark to explain a little bit about that. Now, what does it mean to be a matching grant?
Before that, though, I want to be very clear. So people who are tuning in, we know that the loss of business is one thing, but there's also a restart cost. And I imagine that's kind of where you're hoping to help with these matching grants, that in order to get the business going again, some people need an injection of capital. But it's only for businesses that have 5 employees or less.
Yes. For this first phase,
okay.
We plan to. We're working on other packages as we go along this year, but we're starting off with the micro and small.
Okay.
Can you expand on that, Denmark?
Yes. As Mr. Carballo said, this first program is going to be for the micro and the small enterprises. What we want to do is we want to assist to revitalize the industry. You know, COVID has a dent, slow down business. So we want to assist in revitalizing with the small grants. So right now, that's why we're attending to the micro and the small. In the website and in our Facebook page of the BTB, there are the guidelines as to who can apply, who should apply, and take advantage. As the program names is matching grants. We will be requiring applicants to contribute 20% of the grant that they are applying for. There will be 3 tiers, $1,000, $3,000, $5,000 grants. But we encourage applicants to contribute 20% of that grant. Say, if you're applying for $5,000, we encourage you to contribute $1,250. That $1,250 does not have to be in cash. It can be a combination of cash or in kind from the applicant.
So it's like you set up a project, right? When you come, the first thing is to express that you're interested, which is the expression of interest. It's deadline coming this Friday. Then after that, we have a team that will review over your business profile. And then the second step would be to actually, once we do your cross checks and everything, then you're called and you're expected to go on a training. And this is very important because why we want you to contribute, there are numerous reasons. One, when someone contributes, you feel more a part of their project.
Yeah.
That's one. Secondly, we want to know that you have the willingness, the capacity to continue, the sustainability. But more so, there will be 2 very important concepts within this program. That's why it's a business enhancement program. One, when you do the training, if you're called upon to go ahead and take the next step and take the training, you're going to be given a rundown on how to create your business plan, a small project proposal. So you'll be guided hand by hand, step by step, how to go through this. But we will have an added component of biosecurity, a biosecurity component in it, in which we will make a little assessment of your business, and you could either use part of the grants for that, but we will also leave an assessment as to what would you need to continue operating within a healthy and safe environment. So we've gotten a really nice partnership with the Belize Red Cross in this sector, and they will also be assisting and contributing, partnering up with mini kits, which we shall give all applicants, all successful applicants. But the important thing is for people to understand and continue to enhance the importance of working, operating under strict biosecurity protocols.
So you have, I mean, you talked about the health and safety kits, but before we get to that, when we talked about eligibility requirements for the size of the business, but also tourism-related businesses can be many, and some have been entirely closed or working at a very small, with a small base, and some have been kind of diversifying, maybe trying to tap into the Belizean market. Who's the ideal candidate that you want to benefit?
Okay, we have defined approximately 7 subsectors that are listed in the website.
Okay.
We have the artisans, we have the tour guides, other tourist related. So we encourage applicants to visit the website, and we have clearly defined who should apply. We have here set up a threshold where we want businesses that have no more than 5 employees. We're targeting the micro level, the hair braider that works out of the tourism village, out at Kikakar.
Okay.
We are not limiting, we are countrywide. We want to assist countrywide from Corozal all the way down to Toledo. Expressions of interest is the first phase, where they submit a business profile. I am glad to say that over the past week, we have been receiving numerous expressions of interest from applicants countrywide. All districts have applied, and the applications, as Mr. Carballo said, will be closing this coming Friday at 4 o'clock. Everything is being done electronically via the website.
Okay.
Everything is submitted electronically.
Our target is to reach a targeted number of around 300 MSCs, no? 300 MSCs. But more so, why we are targeting this subsector first, because in many aspects it's an informal economy. No, so we are trying as much as possible to create that capacity building. First of all, to understand concepts like business plans and project proposals and sustainability. Because apart from this, the BTV is also doing numerous studies to also look at what financing options are available post grant. So I know eventually through the DFC, through National Bank, through other commercial banks, they have some level of financing available. So BTB will also assist in guiding these entities, right from the micro right up to the small, medium, to be able to at least access or to give them the facilities, the information needed for them to take the next step. Because that is also key to whosoever is selected. We want to let them have a component of continuity, sustainability. This is a jump start, but gladly, and I'm saying it, at least for the past 3 months, we've seen a very good uptake in tourism. The growth is spike. We hope that if all of us do our part, we can continue that, because we also are encouraging the whole vaccination campaign. As you know, BTV has been an active partner in that. But the greater we can control our spikes of COVID, the more particularly people within the sector are vaccinated, I believe that growth will occur. We believe that growth will happen going into the high season as well, going into October, November. So now is the time to prepare our people, no?
Yeah.
And
now, it's a grant, which means people don't have to repay the portion that is given to them by BTB once found eligible.
Yes.
But how do you monitor that they're using the funds for that? What's that type of accountability that's built in?
Okay, that will come in our second phase of the grants. The first phase, like I said, would be the expression of interest and the submitting a business profile. Then there will be the eligible applicants will then undergo 2 trainings basically. One in biosecurity, how to handle their new businesses in the post-COVID. Secondly, as Mr. Caballo rightly stated, they will be given assistance in filling up business plans. What are you going to do with this money? Talk to me about your project. I am going to repair the facade of my business. I am going to, it depends what you're doing. There, we want the applicants to be a part of the project by thinking, this is how I'm going to invest the money. And to answer your question directly, Marlene, we are going to do a post-monitoring.
Okay.
We are going to visit you and see what was the outcome. As you rightly said, grants do not need to be repaid. But we need to ensure that the money was put to good use.
Yeah. And according to what they applied for. Yeah.
And the main idea is to revitalize the industry, to give the industry that jump start at the micro and the small levels. Like Mr. Caballo said, once this is done, then they can open themselves to access financing from the banks, National Bank, DFC. We do believe that by us giving them that assistance, that teaching and how to formulate a business plan, that is what the other institutions ask them anyway.
Yeah.
So they would have like a little test run already on how to seek other financing.
And also, I think fair is fair. We believe that fair is fair, and so we will be monitoring, like you said, evaluating, monitoring, and giving, and they will be put in a list. And if people don't later on correspond to, and we see it is not done well or anything, you also close yourself to future assistance. We believe that it has to be a I give, you give as well, and both of us win. So that is what we want to do, to ensure that people understand that there will be other programs. This is one of the first. We hope to continue and push and inject that needed boost into the economy, into the tourism sector. But we also need all grantee recipients to do their part. We will do our part to do all the checklists and so on, and we will also evaluate and monitor after.
Do you have to be from one of the major destinations to apply for the grant?
Not necessarily. If through your proposal and through your business profile, you do give a good case that you have been interacting with tourists and you are a contributor, then that will be looked at. Because in reality, Marlene, when you look at numerous studies done countrywide, almost every district has places that have been visited. And more so when we reopen to tourists. We were having a meeting with our Canadian counterparts, and for example, a lot of them are looking now to change the way they used to do things. They don't just want to come for the beaches and so on. A lot of them now say, well, let me try a lot more the inland now. Let me take my road trips in a safe country. Let me be able to touch the different corners of the country. And as such, BTV and collaborating with the Ministry of Tourism and Diaspora Relations, both of us have made numerous studies in different areas of the country, and so that will serve as a platform to choose these recipients.
What is the total earmarked for the grant? Are you at liberty to share?
Well, at this moment, we are embarking this first one, approximately $600,000 for this first phase, with contributions from the recipients. It's going to be a $750,000 program, and we have bigger ones coming up once we finish this first one, and we expect, if all goes well and doing all the processing, that we shall begin disbursements in August, here next month.
Yeah. Yes. And then, Mark, just break it down for us again, because this in-kind part or matching grant, it's going to take some consideration for people. Yes. Let's say I don't have the funds. What type of in-kind contribution can I make?
Okay. The in-kind contribution can be in the form of your labor.
Okay.
You might have some materials already.
Okay.
And definitely the minimum that we'll be accepting is 20% in cash.
Okay.
So if we go back to the example, like I told you, of you seeking a $5,000 grant, your contribution is $1,250.
Yeah. That you have to put into this proposal.
Yes. Yeah. Out of that $1,250, that is your contribution. Basically, cash is about $320. Cash.
Okay.
That will be requiring you to make a deposit, and that will be given back to you.
So let's say I have an idea to restart my business because tourism is starting to pick up. I took a huge hit. I want to access $5,000 from you. All I need to have cash is $350.
Correct.
But I must be able to show that I have materials
Yes.
or hours that I'm willing to put in.
Correct.
Of the value of $1,200, so that it can qualify as a matching grant.
Yes.
That is correct.
These are similar to guidelines established by previous matching grants in different levels. So we're following the same, and it is the willingness to work and put into your project as well.
All right, so people have to access this online.
Yes.
It's on the BTB site.
And the Facebook page.
And the Facebook page, and the deadline?
Is this Friday.
This Friday.
This Friday by 4 p.m.
Okay.
And just to highlight one other small initiative that is going together with this, or complementing this, I mentioned to you that we have approximately 150 entities still that need some push or the other to get gold standard certified. No? And the numbers keep growing as more applicants come in. So we notice that numerous of them, especially the smaller ones, don't even have access to a lot of the biosecurity equipment they need, the PPEs and so on. So through BTB as well, in August, we'll be working on 100 starter kits, 100 starter health and safety kits, which will be distributed in particular so to these entities that need that push to be gold standard certified, but also in collaboration with BTIA and so forth, we'll be distributing to other entities throughout the country, and each kit will be approximately $500 market value per kit, and it will include safety equipment needed for these COVID times.
What kind of equipment?
It's basically like masks and alcohol and sanitizing equipment and so on. And many of them, especially like the small little gift shops, things like that, they might be struggling to pay their workers or numerous other things. They can use this to give them between 2 to 3 months supply. And this will give them to be able to secure that component within the gold standard certification process that requires this equipment. So we're looking deep and trying to find the most vulnerable persons within the sector to give them that little push.
And as you said, you'll help with some of the business plan development as well. So even if they aren't sure of the processes, they just have to put in their profile, and you're there to guide them through the rest.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Well, gentlemen, we hope that people take advantage of this opportunity, as I'm sure they will, because a lot of people want to get the ball rolling back on their businesses that are related to tourism, and this will be part of the assistance that they can access.
Definitely.
As you said, Jose, there's more to come?
Yes, we do plan to engage much more, like I said, on the industry development and other initiatives. We do plan to look at the vulnerability of our sector and be able to prepare more so as we go into this year's high season in October, November. So processes will come along and programs.
Well, thank you both for coming in and telling us all about it. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And once again, for those small and micro businesses that are interested, once you have 5 or less employees, you can access the application form online at the BTB's website and on Facebook. We're going to go ahead and take our final break now, and when we come back, we'll have more wrap-up, so stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky, and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Full-Tech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Good morning, sweetie. It's time for school.
Are you a teacher or public sector employee who is thinking of owning your new home? Get the keys to your new home with Belize Bank's all-inclusive mortgage, the best financing option in Belize for your new home purchase or construction. Inclusive of all mortgage-related fees, no down payment, affordable terms, amazingly low interest rates. Visit our nearest branch to speak to one of our financial advisors to discuss how you can be one step closer to owning your new home. Some conditions apply.
"2020 taught us the importance of being connected to the virtual world, and NextGen is here to keep its commitment to you. Even if you're physically apart, NextGen keeps you digitally connected."
Okay everyone, thank you for following me today.
NextGen provides more than just an internet plan. They provide service plans that support all your online needs. Sign up today and get your NextGen's ultra high-speed internet service. NextGen, powered by Central TV and Internet.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
We're back.
We're back. The discussion with the Port of Belize CEO and all of the developments that are taking place with respect to sugar and stevedoring and the transition to Big Creek, I think, was one that was important to be had for people to understand fully the scope of what is taking place. While yes, there have been press conferences and we've been covering the issue from the beginning, to have the CEO shed some perspective on it, I think gives us a new or a different outlook as to what is happening. You get a more rounded view from the CWU president, you get one equally as rounded from the PBL CEO as to what is taking place in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think one, there has to be a resolution. I think we oftentimes only see it from what's happening internally there, but the implications of slowdown at the port have a far more wide-reaching impact than is very often communicated. And so being able to kind of separate the issues and understand them individually, the CBA with the staff, the continuing relationship between the PBL and the stevedores, and also looking at the impact on businesses like places like ASR, BSI, and now the move for them to possibly divert one portion of their business to Big Creek instead. So we, of course, are going to continue to cover the story, and there will be some developments this week, as Andy pointed out, that the continuing conversation for the collective bargaining agreement with the staff of PBL continues.
Yeah, that resumes on Wednesday. So certainly we will be looking forward to covering that in our subsequent newscasts in terms of developments coming out of those discussions.
That's right. And we also want to say thank you to the BTB. If you are a small or micro business, which means you have 5 or less employees, and you have been impacted, you serve within the tourism industry, then you can apply for a matching grant. This means that as much as 80% of the grant itself is going to be provided to you. 20% has to be submitted by the person who's by the business that's applying, and that can be a portion in cash and a portion in kind. All the details are available online. The deadline is this Friday, though, so you got to get moving quickly to get your business profile submitted along with your expression of interest, and they will help to guide you from there. But thank you to Josue and Denmark for coming in to tell us the details. With that, though, we got to wrap up today's show. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.